In this video, I'm going to tell you how I got 5 level 7s in my year 12 mocks. I've just started year 13, and in my year 12 end of years, I got 5 level 7s. And my higher levels are maths, physics, chemistry. So this video will be more based around the sciences, or like subjects that have a lot of understanding in them. I'm not really sure how the humanities work, like history, geography. Like, I feel like those have a lot more memorization, so the video might not be applicable to those. So the first thing I want to start off with, what I did to essentially get top grades in most of my subjects, was basically what I did is I didn't really take notes in lessons. For GCSEs, I cared a lot about what my book looked like. I'd make sure I wrote down every single word in every single lesson. But in reality, I found this wasn't very beneficial because at the end, I didn't really get the GCSE grades I wanted. I'm not saying it's due to me taking notes. I'm just saying I found that works more for me now. And the reason that I don't think notes are as beneficial as people think they are. Let's take two scenarios. Scenario A. So you understand what the teacher says in a lesson and you write it down. If you truly understand what the teacher's telling you, then you don't really forget things you understand, because once something clicks in your head, you're never going to really forget it. You just might need a little small thing to jog your memory and you'll get the concept again. And the other scenario is you have no idea what your teacher is saying. If you write down what you see on the board, but you don't know what you're writing, it's kind of meaningless because you're not making any connections in your brain. You're just kind of wasting your time when you could spend more time actually listening and maybe asking questions. And the main point here is to engage with your lessons, because if you're passively just writing away, but you have no idea what's going on, you've taken that, when you leave that lesson, you've taken nothing except a page of notes. But notes, information you can find anywhere with a quick Google search, in a textbook, YouTube. Information isn't the limiting factor. It's whether you can get it into your brain. So there's no point taking notes if you can find the exact copy, especially if some teachers upload their PowerPoints like mine. You can get those exact words on the PowerPoint. I don't see the point in that. Another thing is, when achieving the top grades, there's two phases to it. The first one is understanding, and the second one is application. So the understanding phase is typically done. Ideally, you would want to do it in lessons to save as much time as possible. But let's say you don't understand in the lesson, and your teacher doesn't want to explain it to you. You can read the textbook, watch videos. I find videos are the most helpful because it's just more interesting, first of all, but also you can get loads of different explanations really quickly, so you get a better understanding. And also, if you have classmates, it's a good idea to collaborate with them, because if they don't understand something, you can explain it to them, and vice versa, so you can kind of just bounce off each other. So the understanding part is probably the most important, but it's kind of how I said earlier. It's more of a one-time thing. When it clicks in your head, you don't really forget the understanding part. But then the second part, the application, this is essentially testing whether you can apply the knowledge that you've learned to actual questions or exam questions. And the only way to do this is to essentially just practice them. Textbooks always have questions, exams, or you can use past papers. There's never really a shortage of questions unless you're doing something a really specific thing that no one else does. You literally just go into Google, search some questions, and you can just do them. And this tests whether you can actually do the question, because if you understand a concept, you can't link it to a question, then it's kind of useless knowledge, if that makes sense. Okay, another thing that I'd want to say is, I think is really underrated, especially as a student, is sleeping. Because if you're a student, you're at school I don't know how much, 8 hours, let's say an hour for eating, an hour for transport, hour for exercise. Your hours go really, really quickly, so you don't really have that many hours. So by the time you're in the evening and you start to study, it might be 7 or 8 o'clock already. But what I found is you always want to prioritize your sleep as the first thing, because this has the highest ROI, which is like return on investment. Because if you sleep, you always get the most out of that. Let's say you have a homework or a test like the next day, instead of staying up till like 2 a.m. to study, literally just when it hits like 10 or 11 or whenever you go to sleep, just sleep, because when you sleep, that's when the most important part of learning happens. I know you've probably heard it many times, but once you understand that when you're sleeping, you're actually learning like 10, I just made this number up, like 10 times as fast as you are when you're awake. So when you understand that you learn way faster when you're asleep, you're going to want to sleep more, because you know that your brain will subconsciously process and store all the information that you've learned from the day. Another thing that I did is I never really studied more than 2 hours a day, because obviously if you're going for top grades, you have to accept that you're going to need to put the work in, because they're not going to come magically. You can't just be on like failing and then wake up the next day after watching a video on how to get A's and it's going to happen. You need to like understand that you need to put the hours in, but you don't need to put crazy hours in, because loads of people I know put like 4, 5, 6, like 7, so many hours a day, which I don't even know where they get those hours from. They probably just take it out their sleep. But these people don't really achieve the top grades, and it's because they're not really capitalizing on the techniques that I'm talking in this video. So what I did is I never really did more than 2 hours, and I would just literally if I didn't understand a concept in school, I'd have the syllabus up, I'd make sure I understood everything. When I saw something I didn't understand, I'd make sure that'd be my number one priority, to fill in those gaps that I didn't really get. And then I just spam questions on everything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it, because if you study too much, you'll literally just burn out. Yeah, there's one more thing actually. Another thing I used was blurting. This technique it kind of wastes a lot of paper, but it's the most, it's like notes, but it's not notes. You read the book or watch a video, and then you like scribble down as much as you can remember. But this is only good for like stuff you have to memorize. I don't use it that much, but when there's something I have to memorize, just basically get down a piece of paper, write down everything you think you can remember. Because I do economics, so for economics you have to remember a bunch of random stuff, like case studies and curves, and I don't even know, I haven't studied economics in ages, but stuff you have to remember, you just blurt like definitions or whatever, and yeah, you'll remember. So this video I told you how I got 7s. Hope you can wish the best of luck for your future endeavors, bro. Take care.